This morning, the dynamic of the entire investigation shifted. Not on cable news, but in a quiet federal building where ink just dried on paper. You have heard the rumors for months. You have seen the pundits speculate about who might flip and who might stay loyal. But speculation ended at 9 a.m. today. I am going to show you the evidence that changes everything. This isn't anonymous sourcing. This isn't political gossip. This is a signed cooperation agreement from the former chief of staff. I have sat across the table during proffer sessions. I know what fear looks like in those rooms. When a high-ranking official walks in with their lawyer, they do not do it because they want to chat. They do it because they know the game is up. This morning, that official handed over what everyone thought was destroyed. The missing audio exists. It is 18 minutes long, and right now it is in federal custody. Before you ask why this took so long, or why he waited until now to turn, understand one thing. He didn't do this out of the goodness of his heart. He did it because he had no other choice. Let's look at the timeline. 2:14 p.m. to 2:32 p.m. Those are the minutes that matter. For months, the public explanation has been that the recording system was down during this specific window. They claimed a technical glitch. They said the automated logger simply failed to catch the conversation. But the evidence shows a manual override. We now have the digital forensic logs from the server room. At 2:13 p.m., someone entered a command to disable the primary recording loop. But here is what they missed. In the basement, there is a redundant backup system. It operates on a separate power supply, specifically designed to prevent data loss during outages. That backup tape was running. It captured every second of the conversation that happened upstairs. We are not talking about static or muffled whispers. We are talking about high-fidelity audio of the Chief of Staff and the former president discussing the certification process while the violence was unfolding at the Capitol. This tape is the missing piece of the puzzle. When you listen to the description of this audio, pay attention to the silence. There is no panic in their voices. There is no call to the National Guard. There is only a discussion about how to use the chaos to delay the count. In court, we call this contemporaneous corroboration. Here's what that means in plain English. We already had witness testimony. We had aides saying, "I heard them talking about delay." But defense lawyers can tear apart a witness. They can say the aide is lying or misremembering or disgruntled. You cannot cross-examine a tape recording. The tape does not have a motive. The tape just is. This audio verifies what the witnesses said under oath. It takes what the defense called hearsay and turns it into hard, physical evidence. This is why the plea deal happened today. You cannot fight a tape that proves you were lying about the system being broken. Federal prosecutors don't give deals for small fish. We give deals to catch the shark. That is the rule of the game. If the Chief of Staff is getting leniency, it is only because he is giving up someone bigger than himself. I know some of you are thinking, he's a liar, why trust him now? He spent months covering this up. That is a fair question. But here is the answer. In the federal system, a cooperation agreement is a contract. It has a very specific clause called the truthfulness provision. If he lies about even one small detail, the entire deal is void. He goes to prison for everything. His freedom now depends entirely on his honesty. It creates a powerful incentive structure. Think of it like a pressure valve. For months, the pressure was on him to stay silent, to protect the boss, to hold the line. But when the backup tape was discovered, the pressure shifted. He faced a choice. Go down for obstruction of justice and spend 10 years in a cell, or walk into that room and tell the truth. This is the classic prisoner's dilemma. You protect your partner only as long as it makes sense for you. Once the evidence is undeniable, self-preservation kicks in. The agreement is clear. One lie, and the deal is void. This explains the timing. Why now? Because the discovery of the backup tape forced his hand. He isn't flipping because he had a moral awakening. He is flipping because the prosecutors showed him the evidence they already had. They played his own voice back to him. When you hear your own voice on a tape you said didn't exist, you realize the cover-up is over. That is why he signed. For those of us who remember 1974, the number 18 minutes sends a chill down the spine. It is not just a duration of time, it is a symbol of corruption. When Rosemary Woods stretched to erase the Nixon tapes, she created a gap that ultimately brought down a presidency. History doesn't repeat, but the attempts to hide the truth do. We are seeing the same pattern play out 5 decades later. The exact same length of time, the exact same attempt to claim it was an accident, the exact same desperate need to hide what was said in the Oval Office. That is not coincidence. That is a pattern. It shows a mindset that believes power includes the right to edit history. But there is a major difference between then and now. In 1974, magnetic tape could be physically erased. Once it was gone forever. In 2026, digital footprints are almost impossible to wash away completely. You can delete a file, but you cannot delete the server logs that show you deleted it. You cannot delete the backup that was stored on a separate cloud server. Technology has become the ultimate witness. This isn't just about what was said. It's about the attempt to destroy the record. In the eyes of the law, the cover-up is often easier to prove than the crime. We call this spoliation of evidence. That is a fancy legal term, but it means something simple. If you destroy evidence, the jury is allowed to assume that the evidence was bad for you. By trying to hide these 18 minutes, they have proven consciousness of guilt. Innocent people do not manually override recording systems. Innocent people do not try to wipe servers. This tape represents the line between a government of laws and a government of men. If a leader can simply delete the record of their actions, we have no accountability. But because this tape survived, we have a chance to see the truth. The technology that they thought they could control ultimately saved the evidence. The 18-minute gap has been filled. The tape removes the last hiding place. I didn't mean it. Defense lawyers love to argue intent. They say, "My client was just asking questions," or "He truly believed the election was stolen." It is hard to prove what is inside a man's head, unless he tells you. This tape is the defendant telling us exactly what was in his head. The grand jury has now heard this audio. The indictment that follows will not be based on interpretation. It will be based on the defendant's own words. This is how the system works. Not on Twitter, but in the courtroom. It is slow. It is frustrating. I know you have waited years for this moment. But justice requires a foundation that cannot be cracked. This tape is that foundation. It allows the prosecutors to walk into court and say, "We don't need you to take our word for it. Listen for yourselves." When a jury hears that audio, the abstract arguments about state of mind vanish. They are left with the cold reality of a crime in progress. So where does this leave us? It leaves us at the beginning of the end. The chief of staff has turned. The evidence is secured. The missing minutes are found. The process moves forward now, not based on politics, but based on proof. That is not a threat. That is not a promise. That is simply the inevitable result of evidence. The law is a slow-moving machine, but once it has the fuel it needs, it does not stop. This tape is the fuel. No one is above the law. Not the people who give the orders, and not the people who try to delete the tapes. Watch the docket. The next step is the courtroom.